Hey guys, this is in case you missed the kickoff. I'm just going to kind of go through what we talked about during our teaching time at Pump It Up. At first, I asked the guys if anybody used Axe to like spray all over themselves in the morning, and most of the guys raised their hand. And I asked them why they did it, and they're like, "So I smell good, so girls like me." And I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." Not that it ever turns out like those commercials, right? Like mobs of girls don't come because every boy wears Axe. So there just aren't enough women in the world for the amount of people who wear Axe for that to happen. But that being said, um, our lives can be kind of like that. We can live our lives, and it gives off a scent, a perfume, a smell, right? And it can be a pleasing smell or it can be a bad smell, right? Like after you work out, you don't want to like raise your arms up like this and stick your head over because it smells bad because there's just a bad aroma, right? If you don't take a shower, if you've ever been camping for a few days and you don't take a shower, you know it smells bad. You can have a bad aroma and people won't want to be around you. Or you can have a pleasing aroma, spray a bunch of good smell, good stuff on you, and you hope people will want to be around you. And that's kind of the way our life works too. We can present ourselves and we can live and conduct our actions in such a way that people will want to be around us or they won't. But sometimes the Bible tells us even if you do the good things, the right things, and you smell good, you live your life good, it gives off a good smell, people are still going to get mad at you. And Paul writes this, and this is what he says in 2 Corinthians chapter 2. He says, "Thanks be to God, for through what Christ has done, he has triumphed over us, so that now, wherever we go, he uses us to tell others about himself and to spread the gospel like sweet perfume." Meaning, the gospel is life. It's this sweet, amazing smell, right? Like, I don't know what your favorite smell is, but one of my favorite smells is remembering my grandma when she used to make pies for us. She would make like these apple pies, and they were so good. And you could just smell them in the oven, right? Like, that's one of my favorite smells in the world. Um, and God is saying that spreading the gospel is like that. It's like your favorite smell. Think of something that you're just like, oh my gosh, I love that smell. It brings back all these good memories, right? Like the gospel is this sweet perfume. The good news of Jesus is this sweet perfume. And it says, as far as God is concerned, there is a sweet, wholesome fragrance in our lives. If we give our lives to Jesus, our lives is a sweet fragrance to God. It means our life is pleasing to Him. If we give it away to Him and say, Jesus, I'm not living for me. I'm not living to get all the stuff I want. I'm not living for my desires, for what I care about, but I'm living for you. That's a pleasing smell to God. It's like apple pie to Him, right? Like apple pie to me. Us giving our lives like that is like that to God, He says. It is a fragrance of Christ within us and all around us. And it says, to those who are not being saved, we we seem like a fearful smell of death and doom. Meaning, you know how sometimes people get mad at you when they hear you're a Christian or they act really weird when you're like, oh yeah, I go to church, or yeah, I love Jesus, when you say that and they act really weird around you. It's because they can smell death on you, but not your death. They smell their own death, right? It kind of points out the fact that they're making mistakes. It kind of points out the fact that they feel guilty about some of the sins they've committed, and they just don't want to own up to it. So they get mad at you, right? And they blame you for it. But really, it's just because you have the smell of life around you, right? The smell of Jesus, the smell of someone who is saved and under God's control. And when they get confronted with that, it scares them, and they get mad and they lash out at us as Christians, even though it's them they're kind of having the issue here. He says, so to some, we smell bad because we live for Jesus, because it reminds them of the sin and the filth and the dirt in their lives. I'm not saying that we don't have any, but it is saying that it reminds them of it. But when a Christian smells it, when someone who knows that, it smells like a sweet, life-giving perfume. It smells exciting. It smells good. It makes us remember that Jesus has saved us. If you've ever been around Christians, you know, when you hang around with people who love Jesus, instead of like making you feel bad about stuff you've done, like we are supposed to be life affirming, and that's what this is. So I just want to encourage you guys to live as a pleasing aroma to God, meaning telling your friends about Jesus all the time and loving them no matter where they are and their thoughts about that. Because Jesus did it through healing the sick, touching lepers, people who had these giant like boils all over their arm. and nobody would get around them. He would touch them and heal them, and people would freak out because he did that and say he was unclean and all this stuff. And he would go hang out with sinners. He would go to like bad dudes' houses and hang out and have supper with them. And back then, that was really not okay. And Jesus was like, no, they need help. They need life, and he wanted to bring that to them. So you show peace, love, in everything that you do, and you put others before yourself, and you put God above everything else. You'll live a life that gives off a pleasing aroma, and hopefully the people who are around you will smell it, and they won't get mad at you, but they'll kind of want to know why you're like that. So that's what we talked about at the kickoff. Hope you guys are doing well. Love you all. God bless.